She's Donatella. Oh, she was taking care of a baby all this time, like since yesterday. That's what she does. Isn't she beautiful?
Yes, yes.
That's my sister. So you need an espresso? You need something?
Yeah.
Okay. You want me to make espresso or veg tea? You're gonna make it? Yeah. With the love, you know how to put in an espresso.
I would like an espresso, please. And yes, thank you, thank you.
Okay, this is just to. I don't know if you want to keep rolling.
Yes, yes.
Like that and,
No. I like to capture.
Please, of having this opportunity now, because I think you really find. I think you really found what it can be a sort of. It can become something a little bit more than it can be like an important aspect of your goal. It can be actually all entangled into everything you're looking for. I can represent it.
Talk about who you are or talk about where we are.
Now we are in Warren Street, Paulus, right?
In a lovely cafe.
In a lovely cafe with the best espresso in town.
Okay.
And my name is Pietro. And I've been living here from the last 5 years. I moved from the West Village, which was definitely a better place to be. But when I first moved here, I also noticed then what I was able to create in this community. It was really special. So I know every dog, I know every kid, I know every couple, either gay or straight. Somebody suggests me that I should be running as a mayor, or at least of the community. I know everybody. Everybody has a nickname, and I do conceptual art, which doesn't give me enough to live. So to be able to pay my bills, I work in construction like I did all my life. So I do beautiful garden projects, I do interiors, I do Venetian plaster, like I would say the name of my company, which doesn't exist, is called The Final Touch. So
I like that.
It's
called The Final Touch.
Yeah. Oh, I used to have like business card, but you see another aspect, and it made my life easy, and obviously it was all part of my ability of interaction. It was that when I first moved here, I got the first job the same day I moved here in Sussex Street, 75, and from that moment for 3 years I worked on the same street, and I ended up living on the same street on 115 across the street from the church, which is such a beautiful feeling because I feel protected and spied on the other end. And now after the espresso we're gonna go. I would like you to see, I take you a tour in this place that I'm renting. Then it's filled with some of my work in progress creations. I had my first exhibition was in London in the 1992. Then I exposed and exhibit my work in Florence, in Berlin, in Milano. I have something in Sardinia in the museum as part of a private collection. I travel all over Europe. I travel in Mexico, Argentina, in Chile, in Peru. I've been to Alaska. I've been to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Miami. You mention it. I speak French, Italian, Spanish, Sardo, which is the language of my island. But I have so much to say, then you will need more episodes. Now let's take the espresso, let's take a little break. Oh, I want you to see this. This from my friend, yes, it's a great thing. And also I love the guys, then they come here to enrich our neighbor. Look, these are Latinos, they're coming to fix something.
Ah, yes. The maintenance. Hello.
Yeah, the maintenance.
Hey there.
Ahora quiero ver cuando sale si tienen algo, bolsas o algo. Ciao.
Life, I think Einstein said it, life is a miracle for those who think it's a miracle. And this has been a miracle to just stumble upon a community here, a group of people, and a man who is just so bursting at the seams with artistic energy and ideas. And I just found out that he really loves literature, and in particular he's a big fan of Philip Roth, who is, I think, the world of Philip Roth. And as people may know, I taught English for 10 years at Rutgers and Montclair State and CUNY, trying to get young people excited about literature. To suddenly just come across a man like this, a stranger, who is going to teach us all something about literature just by sharing with us his perspectives and on Philip Roth and how. What is the meaning of
First
Roth?
of all, what I would like to add.
Talk about literature.
Yeah, what I would like to add in all this is that being the third of 9 kids from a very poor Sardinian family, I never went to school. And the last time I touched the institutions where you're supposed to get all your knowledge.
Yes.
And it was when I was 14. So whatever I was able to grasp, whatever I was able to find in life, including, as I was saying earlier, discovering Philip Roth, which anticipated all the dynamics, and then I found real around me when I started interacting with a very interesting and wealthy Jewish community who was settled in Pittsburgh, but with the history of Miami, you know, and then with the roots from Russian and Middle East, and everything just was so connected. It was like an anticipation. But why, you know, it was like when I was living in Sardinia, then I was on my teens, I would sing the song of the Beatles, of the Rolling Stones, of the Genesis and Pink Floyd, and those lyrics, they will give me like some, you know, emotional sort of distress.
Yes.
But for me to learn and to know the meaning of those lyrics, it took me until I was 25, and I moved to London and lived there by myself for 10 years.
Yes.
And then when I start understanding the meaning of the language, I'm like, oh my God, they were talking about love. They were talking about things, and they give me the emotions without even knowing the lyrics. So that's what I find like very universal. You know, the ability of music. That could be another chapter.
Yes.
Let's go back to
literature.
To literature, where I was saying Philip Roth, you know, with those three, with the trilogy, American Pastoral, I Married a Communist, and Human Stain, which was done as a movie with Anthony Hopkins and Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
And she's so beautiful doing the cleaning lady.
Yes.
She was not for the room. The movie was like really badly done.
Yes.
But the story itself was great.
Yes.
Another person that I want to add in the list of those incredible writers that America produced, it's Jonathan Franzer.
Yes.
Then
Jonathan
the correction
Franzer.
also.
Yes. Yes.
Know, somehow guide me through a part of society. Then it's like if I have the keys, if I have like a little anticipation.
Just another miracle happened to me. This week I bumped into Jonathan Franzen on 83rd and 3rd in New York on 3rd Avenue and 83rd Street one morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. I just happened to bump into him, had a little interaction, and it was quite amazing because I think the world of him too. So again, this is wonderful that we're just having this conversation. I think this is incredible. So talk more about literature and show us the new Philip Roth book that you just found.
Well, now, for me, found, like to find for me is the easiest thing. I found everything.
Wow.
And you will see later, even the work I do, which is very Duchamp inspired, you know, from L'Objet Trouvé.
Marcel Duchamp.
Marcel Duchamp.
Beautiful.
Now this
Show
is
us
what I
the
just
book.
found on the garbage. I wouldn't even say the garbage. You know, the way the community in Paulus get ready of things like I do, we donate or we put them on the sidewalk with a little note, take me, I'm free. Or you find a printer like, take me, I still work. Or a table like, I'm looking for a home. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, this is what I
Show
what
us.
I found.
Hold it still.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was saying about Jonathan Frender, then he was maybe celebrating the success with the last novel called Freedom.
Yes.
Which it took him 11 years.
Okay.
After the correction, and he has the same intensity, the same vibration, with the difference that he a little bit embraced even what happened in 2008. He's analyzing 10 years after the correction.
Okay.
You know, it's like the American mentality is more towards, you know, towards Ponzi schemes. He's more towards Madoff. Like he's almost.
Describe for me the beauty of Paulus Hook in this corner we're standing on.
Well, we are exactly on the southwest corner of Warren Street. The beauty about Warren Street is that if you look all the way to the end, you have the Statue of Liberty. Then it's centered with Warren Street. I think it's such a beautiful scene. Just to give you the idea, where you know we are surrounded by the marina and beautiful views of Manhattan. Now, Paulus Hook is towards my right side, more into Washington and Grand intersection. And there was the highest point when Hudson, you know, there was like a hill, considering everything was level towards, you know, towards the river. And now,
you hear the birds?
Yeah. Oh, these are
the birds.
They're squirrels. They're like. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in the National Geographic Channel. Like nature is just like around us. Now, this is where I live. We are just a little bit up from where I was talking earlier. I live here across the street from this beautiful Catholic church. He has been just... actually, they're celebrating a wedding. Often I have the opportunity of taking pictures from my windows because I'm really facing the church from my own apartment. And I see funerals, I see whatever, you know, I see like the blessing of the dogs and the animals, and it's just beautiful. There is always something going on. Now this is the place that I'm renting, and this is the garden. Finally, in the summer, we get this beautiful opportunity of having flowers, and I just arranged this. I'm waiting for the green to grow until the bricks will be you know, covered. I see all the things growing. Most of these plants, they've been rescued. The bricks, they were actually taken by the shore. As you can see, they are all rounded by the waves. I carry them with my bike, and most of these plants, they have been rescued from the neighborhood. Everything is recycled, and everything you see around you is just, you know, this is like a rescue. Yes, we can put the shim. There is. So this is what I call, you know, it's my melting pot somehow. You know, it's like the variety of things in this wall. Then they can be, you know, like relatives. They can be kids of old pictures of my own self. Can be work of art. Can be magazine articles, can be posters. I just love the idea that every single object, it just suggests, look at this beautiful Prada shoes. Isn't a piece of art in its own, you know? So I frame it just because it's such a beautiful creation. And then from here you go to whatever a kid, you know, you have Caravaggio, you have the postcard that it was issued when John Lennon was killed. But I put on the bottom part a gay advertising about Move It. Like there is all this assemblage, all these levels and interaction. There is lots of interactions. I love this campaign of 2004 New York City for the Condom Day, where Manhattan in his up, you see the yellow one? You see Manhattan looked from, it is like a map, and he's wearing a condom.
Oh, yes.
Like it's such a, like details, and people just sees on magazines on the street, and I see really the value, I see really the strong message. It's like this piece over here, then I need really to complete. You see, Imagine Peace was a page that Yoko Ono rented on the New York Times. So I just put the piece of paper for weeks against the wall, and then I found the frame. And then what was really interesting about this piece, that I call my masterpiece, is that this used to be a screen that you used to distribute the flame when you cook like Chinese. So removing the screen and putting this on the corner is almost like if my idea was to turn this into a magnified glasses, right?
Okay.
Like peace is something that you really have to look for.
Yes, yes.
But what I loved about this interpretation is that one day I was here with a very young fellow, an African-American guy, without any sense of art, of knowledge. And when he saw that piece, he said, "What is that, a magnified glasses?" And I'm like, if he sees that, it means then he has the potential of a universal way of communication, which I think art, that's the goal of art, like being able to communicate to every single one, no matter what your background is.
Now, you have Frank Sinatra playing.
Well, I'm actually listening to Jonathan Schwartz in WNYC. Okay. He plays every Saturday and Sunday. It's Sinatra all the time. But I love it, it's a nice background.
What is this we're looking at?
Pardon?
What are we looking at?
Now, this is a Madonna con Bambino, which, look in the style, it looks like a French painter. It's not a signature there. And what I want to the project on this will be to sew in top of the Madonna and the Bambino this massive amount of jewelry and objects that I find in the street, like, from cheap rubber bands to, lapis lazulis, and everything is going to be just sew it into the canvas. Like if the Madonna is wearing a different. I'm working with Madonnas. Like this is called strategy to collect Madonna's tears. They're mostly like work in progress. Everything you see around, including those guys here, which is part of a search I'm doing about animals, putting together, a combination of objects. You see, a mask and a ping pong balls, or like items. You see, these are again things you find on the street.
Yes.
So this is more like animal studying.
Okay.
And then
let's go in here.
Here is my list. Well, I have this list over here from. It's a variety of writers, and from politics. This is one of my favorite. This is Francis Bacon, which I actually met personally when I was living in London.
Show the book.
And it's a sort of. It was published after his death in the 1992. I met him personally. I used to live on Brompton Road.
What was that like?
Francis Bacon, I think for me, I have a scale of value about artists, and I have Caravaggio, Francis Bacon, and Picasso. For me, they are the number one is Caravaggio, and then Francis Bacon comes after him, because he was really one of the few. Then he was able to distort, like twist the human soul. Yeah, and also when I met him, it was more like, the millionaire, which he would come with this very young escort. He will spend like £1,000 for a bottle of wine, very fancy, very Francis. And but I never have the opportunity of going and actually seeing his studio, which that was in the plan. But here you see, next to me, I have like books. Then I'm reading The Freedom of Jonathan Franzer. I took the cover because I want to respect it, and then at night, there was a... and this, the last one of one other, my favorite artist.
Let me see.
Let the great word spin. Yes. And the beauty is that whatever you see here in the cover, which is done by an Italian designer, is about the first short story on the book talks about the famous French guy, which he went from one tower to the other.
Yes.
You know, and he actually won the documentary. He won the Oscar for the documentary, which tells the story about him reaching that goal.
Huh.
And this was sent to me by my friend in London, and it's called Kafka on the Shore for Karuni Murakami. It's very interesting. And the next one in the list, obviously if the time will be on my side, is this, given to me by my brother-in-law, and it's super sad true love story. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be, I don't know this yet, but I'm really looking forward to discover it and put it on the list of my favorites. And I think I have some of my favorites over here.
Okay.
Over here. Here is where I keep all my dictionaries and. Oh, here I have guides and. Now this is one of my favorite. I really, really recommend this book. This is. My God.
The old Doctoro.
Yeah, but Homer and Langley,
of course.
You know them? This inspired now. If you go to Google, you Google Collier brothers, you trace a real story about those two very wealthy brothers, and they aged in a brownstone, and one of them, he was a hoarder. He collects so much junk that when they found their bodies dead, into the brownstone in Fifth Avenue, back on the 50s, they used the word Collier brothers to represent a situation of overcrowded objects. It became like it became like a term used by the firefighters, police, whatever. So Dr. Wu, he was inspired by this real case, and he write this novel. Then it's told you by the blind guy. He's a blind telling you the story. And as the time goes by, obviously with this fantasy, it gives the opportunity to those two brothers to meet somebody from the 1970s just across the street on the Central Park. And he's like a part of the history in America at that time. He talks about, like, in the house, everybody comes into the house, from the jazz musician from Louisiana to the gambler, to the Japanese prisoner, to the Jewish knocking the door. Like everything, the history comes into the brownstone. It's such a beautiful look. I have a goosebump. It's like such a beautiful story. Imagine that when I finished reading it, I started it again. And I will read it a third time. It's so beautiful, I'm telling you.
Oh, here we are live at Pietro's home. And I think what I want to comment right now, because this is amazing that this is even happening right now. And in an age of alienation, when so many people are disconnected from each other and strangers are suspicious of one another, here I met a wonderful man on the street, okay? We just struck up a conversation, and it was through the arts, obviously. We had connection through the arts, and here I am at his beautiful home, and he's sharing his wonderful artworks. So something is to be said here for me. There's a meaning that I'm getting out of this encounter. When I started filming today in Jersey City in Paulus Hook, the first thing I shot was the statue of the Underground Railroad from the Morris Canal, which was from Jersey City to Pennsylvania, and was a site of the where black people came to search for freedom on the Underground Railroad. They would escape to Jersey City, okay? And I'm feeling a sense of freedom here too right now, just in this encounter, and the sense of possibility that's opening up, human possibility, that people can talk to each other. And I think there's a political meaning in this too, for democracy, for strengthening our country, for fighting for freedom. I showed you the Statue of Liberty. We saw images earlier. So all of this is coming together for me right now, and also with literature and the meaning of that, of writing, of people who write to say what they have to say and communicate some kind of a meaning, which Jonathan Franzen has done and Philip Roth has done. So this is the way we go to search for our freedom, to become articulate, to escape from submergence in the everyday and the routine, to strike out for a new beginning. And the arts allow that. Here I am inside of Pietro's home. We're having a discussion. His lovely sister, tell me your name again? Delatella is filming me right now, and we're engaging in a dialogue. And we open up these questions, okay, and say, what can be said next? Who else can join us in this conversation? How can we grow this conversation? How can we expand the space of freedom? How do the arts communicate that message that we can have a better world and a more just and a more kind world? So with those political implications, I want to hand the microphone over to Pietro and talk about his vision of a world that might be a better world. Okay, Pietro.
Never there. You know, when we talk about better world, it seems that it's like if we already know the solution. Because if I look back in history, it was never an example for even 5 minutes that was a better world. But there are better countries, for sure. And me being in the United States of America, I remember when I went through the interview to be accepted in this country, because I didn't came from Ellis Island. I was, I'm too young for that. But when the lady, placing the interview, say to me, why do you want to come into this country? And I say to her, because I guess then this country needs me. And she was like, oh my God, you know all. And I'm like, well, give me the opportunity. And here I am. As he was saying earlier about making sure that whatever surrounds us, he has always this influence and this connection with art, then it really frees us and it gives us an opportunity. It's not even an escape, it's really our nature. But it's very hard to keep it alive. And what I do personally, going on, with my ups and downs, like everybody, especially for people who is exposed into this almost like surreal way of existing, because sharing your thoughts, your creativity, sometimes is even a burden. Sometimes I'm like, why I'm not like everybody else? I played my lotto, I'm hoping for gaining lots of money, and I retired. Everybody has his own goals. But you know what I do? Every single day, whatever it comes into my path, I try to embrace it, and I do not use filters. Sometimes that puts me in a position where people either loves me or hates me. I can embarrass people very easily without any intention, and I'm willing to say I'm sorry if this is what I provoked. But I think then being connected is really being who you are, and those filters are important. I'm not saying that we should live without, but when everything is around me, and we were talking about community, we were talking about the selection of those objects, and I can say just randomly Polish picture, Switzerland, Pietro, Santa Barbara, condoms, Obama, Macchia, Peru, Max, shoes, Christ, lamp, mirror, dogs, chains, dog, leashes, shoes, and soldiers, and families, and Greek, and Sardinia, and cars, and children, and dogs, and Raffaello, and Korea, and dance, and Lion King, and blacks, and gay, and stop smoking, and your niece, and toys, and dog shit in the shape of a heart, and plates, and John Lennon, and gays, and children, and Caravaggio, and space, and military, and high heels, and war, and David Bowie, and my grandma, and Geico can save 50 minutes in life on your car insurance.
Wow. I want to respond to that, Pietro. I do want to respond to that, and first I want to urge you also to quit smoking. Okay?
Look,
and
my goal.
Oh, good. Okay.
I frame it.
Perfect.
At least I frame it.
Perfect.
Reaching that goal.
I feel so many things to respond right now. Okay, one, I'm so happy for this human dialogue that has occurred almost magically from just walking down the street. I want to say something about Philip Roth, since you mentioned Philip Roth. I taught for 3 years in Essex County College in Newark, and this is a very devastated community of mostly black people in poverty. I taught English there for 3 years, was very poorly paid, and I tried to wake up my students to literature and to the arts. And most of those students had no idea that Philip Roth was born there, because they were never educated on that. And I would always tell them, you had a great writer who was born here. Some other things I want to say: I do believe in a better world, and we can fight for a better world. I belong to a group called the Network of Spiritual Progressives, which is trying to build the spiritual left to critique the religious right, we have a notion of a new bottom line, not only based on expanding money and power, because the current bottom line only wants to expand money and power, and judges a company as rational to the extent they expand that. We want to expand not only money and power, but also love and kindness and caring and compassion. And here is Max. Hi, Max. How are you? I'm John. Nice to meet you. We're in the middle of filming a movie. You're welcome to join us. No, this is wonderful. So I think that we can fight for corporate responsibility. Corporations now are raping our planet. They're destroying our environment, and we need an environmental and social responsibility amendment to the United States Constitution. This was proposed by Dennis Kucinich. It was created by Michael Lerner of the Network of Spiritual Progressives, and I'm fighting for this, for corporate responsibility. I want to tell a quick story what happened on my way here. I was trying to get people to talk on the camera, and there was a couple sitting by the water, and Paulus hooked there, and they seemed very wealthy, you know, well-to-do couple, both of them working in investment banking, and they can afford to live in a fancy place here. And I asked them to comment, and they would not talk on my camera, and there was a kind of hesitancy to, you know, and I think it has to do with the corporate silences, that people are afraid to speak out, say anything against corporate America. Well, luckily we still have public access media, and we'd like to expand this to a regular cable show to get some wealthy progressive people who will support a network like this that shows real things. We are a show about something. We are not a show about nothing. We are a show about something. We're a show about community, about people. We're creating this as we go along. We have no script. I came to Paulus Hook, and this is all spontaneous. Pietro has invited me into his home. We are trying to create a better country. I have ideas I want to communicate to Pietro. Pietro has ideas for me. And through the arts and aesthetics, anything is possible. I believe in miracles, okay? And, you know, I think we have to all fight together in community for a better world, okay? And so now, I would like to say, would you like to speak at all to Donatella? Donatella, would you like to say some things? Are you sure you want to say something, introduce yourself, talk about some art? Donatella? Okay, bye-bye, bye-bye. Would you like to speak a little bit? No, you sure? Okay. I don't like to force anybody, but you know, again, I just feel very happy. This is amazing that this is happening. We invite people at home watching this to be part of our community. We're the Public Voice Salon. We're a dialogue on culture, politics, and the critical issues of our time. And we're creating community from the ground up here. And okay, we can close this segment because you need to go, right? Okay. Would you let some closing thoughts? Okay.
A little detail.
Here.
Whatever I'm adding now is like I'm sort of creating the base for the next encounter. I hope this will be the start of several confrontation. Then I can actually provide with community. I can have kids with you, I can have families, I can put together 25 people of my community, and we can be in a place where everybody has something to say, and where I can actually promote my initiative of doing art for kids. I've done this for 5 years, and I started this in Mexico City out of the blue. So I'm just saying then this can be the start of a series of different encounters where we talk about different things. And when you earlier talk about you trying to introduce Philip Roth to a black community just because Philip Roth was living around the corner, I thought, and we're going to be talking on the future about James Baldwin, which is maybe what the African American should start to know before they approach anybody else. It's like if you want to start knowing music, you know, John Coltrane, or whatever, you know, even like Spike Lee as a director is not known. Somebody doesn't know even about Jay-Z publishing Decoded, which I gave it to a very young African American, and he say, oh, whatever is on the book is bullshit. And I'm like, well, that's Jay-Z. Like, the history, the unfolding of the arts, the unfolding of the expression, we are part of it. and we're going to be talking for time to come. Okay. Thank you very much. It was magic for me also. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we're continuing on our discovery of Paulus Hook, this magic community here, and I'm with my friend, the choreographer, writer, and professor, Sandra Laredo. And Sandra and I met about 10 years ago. We were both teaching at New Jersey City University in the English department, and it was at a holiday party, so we've been friends for a while. And Sandra used to live in a different part of Jersey City, and now she's come to settle in Paulus Hook, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience of living in this neighborhood. And as we continue to talk, we'll talk about creativity and her art and other ideas. Okay.
Yes, hi John. Good to see you today. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a beautiful day here in Paulus Hook, and we are in a very nice neighborhood. It's very unknown. It's like a little secret in Jersey City, and everybody, all my friends in Manhattan, they say, where do you live, in Jersey? Ooh, you know, they hate to be coming to visit me, so I'm very happy that you're here today to come visit me in my little world. You know, it's a charming little place. It's right by the marina, which is across the water from World Trade Center, and nobody knows about it. It's really a hidden little garden, you know. So thank you for visiting me, John.
And Sandra, maybe you want to talk more about how you first came to America from France, and some of your ideas about creativity and art and culture. And I understand you did teach once at NYU, and you were part of a program there to bring French culture to America. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yes, in fact, I came on a grant, a French government grant, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Actually, I was a diplomat, and I had money to come and write about American musicals, the dance in the American films, which is very unique to America. Musicals is America, you know, is for us as European. It's your popular art, and it's very exciting for the French. So I was invited by NYU as a visiting scholar, and I was lucky because it gave me a chance to meet incredible people in the Department of Performance Studies as well as cinema studies, and I had a chance to interview everyone, and so I could have my notes for my book, you know. So I came here, and then I decided, you know what, I love this country. It's beautiful. You know, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, as Frank Sinatra said. And I believe in that. So I am here now, and I teach and I write, and I hope that your show could go on so we can work together. I'm really excited, you know.
I'm so happy to reconnect with you, Sandra, after a while. And I know you're always back and forth to Europe and to France. And do you find that in terms of French culture that Americans are open to that? Or how do you find, you know, how do you bring the French culture to America? What is that process like, the education process?
Well, the first question, like the viewing of how Americans view France, if you want to have the answer, just go see the movie, the Woody Allen movie called Midnight in Paris. You know, it's full of stereotype, but charming stereotype. I think the American gets stuck in the image of the French after World War II and the creativity with all those authors and the 1920s, and there is a mixture of fantasy. It's like a musical. They create a musical out of Paris, you know. French is very different nowadays. It's a very dynamic culture. It's very artistic, and the good thing about the French is they used to have a lot of money to support the arts. So I don't know anymore if it's a case now because I'm living here mainly, but I love the fact that French people are very into new wave things, you know. They embrace that.
Wow. You know, for me, a great awakening, intellectual awakening happened in the 1990s when I was in my 20s and I discovered French cinema. And it was like really a whole world had opened up to me, a world of aesthetics, a world of relationship, of how people relate to each other in different ways and more humane ways. It was a humanity that I discovered in French films, you know, where characters actually had lengthy conversations. It wasn't like cut to this scene and car chasing and all these like formulaic plots. And there were particular directors like Eric Rohmer and Jean-Luc Godard and François Truffaut. And then, so when I met you, I felt like it was a connection to that part of me that loves the French cinema. And so what is your own experience with French cinema in terms of watching film or being involved? Have you had any involvement in the cinema?
Well, I've had involvement in the cinema because before going back to school to study theater and choreography and writing, I was an actress for 8 years. I didn't have, unfortunately, a big breakthrough, you know, in terms of big parts, but I did small parts, and I was very interested in being part of the process of filming, and I was lucky because I worked with the people that I adore, such as Federico Fellini. So yes,
oh my goodness.
it was my first film ever. I had a small part in a Fellini movie called The City of Women, or in Italian it's Città delle Donne.
This is wonderful, and I think it is fateful that we did meet. I think it was for a reason, and perhaps working together we can create a new kind of American cinema to bring that influence here. I'm reading a book about Jean-Luc Godard. I'm halfway through. It's a biography by Richard Brody called Everything is Cinema, The Working Life of Jean-Luc Godard. And so I would like to, and Godard is alive, he's 80 years old, so I think maybe working with you we can create a new kind of American cinema, and this could be the beginning of it right here. What do you think?
I'd love to do that. Actually, I've been thinking a lot about the relationship between documentary and real life stuff, everyday life, because everything is drama, everything is interesting to my eyes, you know. And I love the fact that I did a storytelling workshop, and I love the fact that everybody has a story to tell. It's beautiful, and it goes with the new wave. The new wave was about freedom, about not being so structured and dramatizing. Drama is in the street, in the everyday life, you know.
You have a story, I have a story. My lovely wife Claudia, who's taking the camera, who we're very grateful to, has a story. As we get ready to go to Sandra's home, she lives very close to here. Claudia, maybe you could just pan the camera around and see this lovely aesthetic setting that we're in front of a cafe, having this dialogue, which is to me very French, you know, as, you know, most people are, you know, work in offices or cubicles and, you know, slaving away, and here we are. That's a very American pragmatic, you know, everything is, you know, routine and you have to make money, and I think in this country we need more free time so people can have these kind of interactions and become more humane and have, you know, a less of a work week and really bring that French culture to America. I would like to bring this dialogue and this TV show to Europe, and you can show us around Paris to Cafe Life, and we could broadcast that back to New York and this area. So I feel like this is the beginning of something amazing, and now we are going to follow you to your home.
Yes.
Okay, let's go. Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. So we're now at the Jersey City waterfront with Sandra. Here's her lovely home. She lives here, but this is where her backyard. She can walk out and see the Hudson River and the beautiful spirituality of water, and see the boat. Here's the ferry coming and going, and Sandra can talk a little bit about this wonderful setting and how it makes her feel and inspires her art and her life.
Yeah, every day when I come out, I come and see the boats, and then I see the view of Manhattan at night. So I'm not far from Manhattan. I'm like a boat ride to downtown Manhattan, but at the same time, it's so pleasant. It's like being in vacation all the time. I just love living here. It's unique.
Wow. So now we're going to take a walk inside. Maybe, Claudia, you can show New York, you can scan the camera around, and also think a little bit about Jersey City and the art community that's growing here. I would very much like to be a part of that with you, Sandra, and nurture something very special here. It seems like the people are very not pretentious. They seem to be open to new ideas, and it's not so closed in as sometimes it can be in New York.
Well, maybe because you choose the right people. It's all a matter of finding the right community. Not everyone is like that, unfortunately, Yeah. But thanks God, we're here.
Yes, okay.
And we're enjoying life, and we want to share it with everyone, okay?
Exactly. Let's go inside now.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Okay, so we're here in Sandra's home, a lovely, beautiful, aesthetic home. And Sandra, you recently did a play called Misdirections, and this was produced at the Players Club as a Dada play. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about your involvement with the Dada, and if the Dada movement is still alive today. I know it was very big years ago in the 1920s. Salvador Dali was a part of it. So how did you get involved with the Dada?
Well, it happened that at the university in Paris, we did a lot of experimental writing with my professor, who was sort of a serial writer, and he improvised a method. We went in a castle in south of France, and we were 12 people, and 12 of us wrote with his method, and my plays ended up being Fausse-piste in French, and I had it translated with a friend of mine in Misdirection. And it happened to be very Dada, which is a movement that happened right after the surrealist movement. And it's like when the children are saying the first word, they say da, da, da. Da, da, da.
Okay.
So that's referring to the non-bourgeois. What happened is like, the surreal movement became bourgeois, meaning it went into the establishment. The Dadaist became more like, no, we don't want to be part of it. We want to break all the rules and accept the freedom. So you have Tristan Tzara, who did a lot of writing in Dada. Breton was a painter. And you had a lot of movement of people. Anyway, my style is Dada. And Misdirection was presented for the first time as a stage reading that I directed at the Players Club. And I'm going to show you the poster.
Okay.
You want to see it?
Take a look at the poster. Okay, show the camera. Wow. And as far as like for people who are not familiar with the Dada movement, what would be a good way to describe what it is and what what is the philosophy behind Dada? There was a recent Woody Allen movie called Midnight in Paris, and it shows a scene of going back in time, and Salvador Dali is in some of those scenes. So maybe for an American audience who has no sense of what this kind of avant-garde art culture was, maybe that's a little bit of an exposure. But what is your sense of the meaning of Dada?
It's just trying to give a new definition to objects. Like, for example, an object could be a pipe, and the drawing says this is a pipe. But if you look at it from another angle, a pipe could be all sorts of different things. It could be a piece of art. It's just an angle of how to look at life in general and objects, and it's getting out of the boxes of the traditional way of thinking.
Another big idea that we have for this television show is to educate the public, and Sandra and I are both educators, so I'm so glad we've come together and to create a space for this aesthetic education to happen. John Dewey, who is an American philosopher, who has said that the more you know about art, the more you see and the more you feel. So just having knowledge of this is, I think, very important. And if we look at the education system, they're cutting the budgets on arts, and less people are having the privilege of being exposed to these different concepts and aesthetics. And so I'm glad that Sandra is able to express some of this to the public today. And now we're going to look around the apartment. So we're going to talk a little bit about cinema now, and I'm holding a picture of Sandra when she was in her acting heyday, okay? It's a wonderful photograph, and photographs also tell a story and are works of art, and Sandra's going to talk a little bit about her acting days, and we have some other photographs to look at, and I'm also very interested in acting as well, as a person whose grandmother was brought to America by a famous actress at the turn of the century, Blanche Walsh, and so it's very interesting that we're reconnecting on cinema today, and our dreams are sort of coinciding. So why don't you talk a little bit about this picture and your acting days?
Okay, this picture was shot in Paris. I was a model for actually a makeup artist. So he had to do a very special makeup to get his exam done. And I was his model, so he did this incredible work. And then he cut my hair after that. So that's what happened now. I have short hair. But anyway, so it was a few years later, of course, you know. But I had a dream when I was in Paris. I always wanted to be an actress. So I did acting. I went to the Actors Studio in San Francisco where I did some workshop, and then I started an acting career, and I had small parts. I started with Federico Fellini in Rome. So I went all the way to Rome. I was very bold at that time. I was younger, you know, I was in my 20s, and so I just took a train and went to I was in Paris, and somebody said, Fellini is looking for women, for the City of Women. I said, I have those great pictures. I should go show it to him, you know. So I went to Paris, and by the time I arrived at the casting production, they said, too late, he's gone. So I had this friend, he said, oh, you're not going to give up, you know, you're French, you should go. And I'm Dada on top of it. Yes. So here I am taking the train with my Brazilian friend, and we're going to Cinecittà. And I knock on the door literally to Federico Fellini, and he said to me, I'm not Federico. I say, yes, you are. I know you. You were in Fellini Roma. So he started laughing and everything, and he said, okay, show me your pictures. And that's what I'm going to show you now, my pictures, you know.
That's wonderful. Got it? Okay.
Then show the leg. Yeah, that's great. Oh, that's perfect.
All right, good.
And then you go down like you did for the other one.
And you can go back up too. Why don't you go back up? Yeah, there's the dancing.
That's perfect. C'est belle et douce, la fille du Panama se pousse sur le rivage, mais toute la plage fait ah.
Okay, since Sandra and I are both educators, it's very important also to have a space to reflect, and we reflect with dialogue, and we learn and grow with dialogue. And so thinking about today and also moving forward, and the images that we just saw and this wonderful experience, I want to say how happy I am for our reconnection, Sandra, and I look forward to making more projects with you that will also show other people that they can be creative and release their inner sense of growth and, you know, and articulation, and through this project. So what are some of your thoughts and reflections on today?
Well, first, John, I want to thank you very, very much for coming to my world. It's so nice to bring to life back all those pictures that I took when I was younger. I never had a chance to show them, and I wanted to do an exhibit of them. And thanks to you, you're bringing the best of me, and you're helping me reconnect with my own creativity. Thank you for being my friend, and I hope we're going to work together for a long time.
Well, in the words of Frank Sinatra, the best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine? Yes, this has been wonderful for me too, and I I think it's time to now think and process this and go forward and think about what kind of cinema projects we can make, combining fiction and nonfiction and documentary, and really forging a new American cinema and reawakening our own creative potentiality. I think as the teacher also needs to grow and needs to create and invent. I am no longer teaching, I am now in the real estate business, so this has become my creative project and my teaching project. You are helping me grow, as you always have in our 10-year friendship, and let's end with some music and dancing. How about that?
Thank you very much. Thanks. Have a great day.